In this video, we're going to be showing how we can use the light sensor to cause a change on our microbit. You'll need the light sensor, the microbit and breakout board, and 3 pin socket wires. The wires I chose are green, red, and blue so that they match the colors of the wires on the light sensor. You can go ahead and start by plugging in the 3 wires to the sockets on the light sensor, and if you're using similar colored wires like me, just make sure that they match up. These wires essentially act as extensions to make it easier to plug the sensor into the microbit. We can start connecting everything by grabbing the red wire and finding the port on the microbit breakout board that says 3V3. That's our common power one. Next, we'll grab the ground wire and plug it into one of our 2 ground ports. Finally, we'll take the blue wire and plug it into one of our pins. For this tutorial, we're going to use pin 0, which is the pin that's right next to the power pin. And now looking at it, you can see we have our green, red, and blue wires all attached. Now we can go ahead and take our micro USB cable, plug into the microbit, and head over to MakeCode. Once in MakeCode, we're going to select that New Project button, and we're going to make a new project, give it a name such as Test Light Sensor, and then go ahead and click Create. Once inside of our project, we don't really need the OnStart block, so we're going to go ahead and drag it to the left to get rid of it. The goal of the code for this tutorial is going to be to read in the value from our light sensor and use it to change the LED display on our microbit when it goes above a certain threshold. To get started, we're going to need a variable that represents our light. Go ahead and go to the variable menu and then click Make a Variable. Call it Light and click OK. This is going to cause 3 blocks to appear that all have to do with the variable light. We want the one that says Set Light to 0, and we're going to drag it over to our Forever block. Now, since we want this variable light to represent the value we get from our light sensor, we need to read in from our light sensor. So go to the Advanced menu, click on Pins, and look for the block that says Analog Read Pin P0. Click it and drag it over that 0 so that it fits right into its position. We're going to keep the pin as P0 because that is what our wire is plugged into for our signal. Now we need to set the behavior for our circuit, and to do so we're going to go into the Logic menu and select the If-Else block, drag it over and put it right below the Set Light block. The if-else block will be used to split the behavior of our code depending on what we read in our condition, which is the hexagonal part that currently just says true. If the condition is met, we'll run the code that falls right below the word if. If not, we'll run the code that's below else. To make that condition, we're going to go back into the Logic menu and select the second block below the word comparison. Drag it over the word true and snap it into place there. Now in that hexagonal block, we want that first 0 to actually be the value of our light sensor. So let's go back into the variable menu, grab the word light, and snap it into place there. Now the value of the variable light is going to increase with the more light that we expose our sensor to. So if we want something to happen when we expose the sensor to more light, we need this statement to read if light is greater than a certain value. So we can go ahead and drop down that menu that is currently showing the less than sign and switch it to the greater than sign. Finally, our light variable readings are always going to be within the range of 0 and 1023. That's just how the light sensor works. So for our light sensor to have a triggering condition, we want to set this 0 value to a threshold that's about halfway between the possible values of light, which you can estimate would be anywhere between 500 and 600. So you can choose a value within that range, or one or the other, and this should make a good threshold for our light sensor. At this point, we can move into setting the behavior for our microbit. We're going to go into the basic menu, and click that show icon block and place one of them within the if statement. We're also going to place another within the else statement. These two icons could be set to whatever you want, but just make sure that they're different. I'm placing a check mark in the if statement and an X in the else statement. We make them different because one of them, in this case the check mark, will show when our light is above a certain threshold, and the X will show otherwise. And with that, our code is done, and we could go ahead and download it to the microbit to test it out. However, we could go ahead and first try to improve the readability of this code by a little bit. Specifically, our light sensor is always going to be coming in on this range of 0 to 1023, which some might say is way too big of a range, or we just don't really need that big of a range. So instead, we can go to the pins menu and grab this large oval-shaped block and drag it where we have our light variable currently and place it on top of it. This will force the light variable out to the back, so move your total block of code to retrieve it. And we're going to place it in that first 0 next to the word map. Now what this is going to do is take that variable light where it expects it to be in a range from 0 to 1023, which are the default values in the from low and from high blocks, and it's going to convert it to a value that is in the range we set in the too low to too high blocks. So rather than leave it at 4, let's change that too high block to something like 20. So now our light variable is going to come out of this large red block as a number that is between 0 and 20, which means that on the right side, our threshold value can be changed from 500 to the number between 0 and 20, which is 10. And that'll make it a little bit easier for us to set a threshold for our light sensor moving forward. But this code is done, so if you haven't already, go ahead and try downloading it to your microbit. Now, back at the microbit, we can see that it should be displaying a red X. I'm going to put it off to the side and take a hold of the light sensor. And then if you just get some sort of source of light, like your phone, you can turn on a light, and as you see, when I shine the light on the light sensor, we get a check mark, and when I take it away, we get an X. Happens pretty quickly. And there we have it.